So today we're going to be talking about this book, reviewing this book on Lyme disease. I took quite a few notes, so it is worth reading. I'm going to say the guy who wrote it is a psychiatrist, which I don't know how I feel about that, but
well, it's because medical doctors aren't doing the job, I'd say.
But anyway, so still a whole bunch of people collaborated on this. It wasn't just one doctor. He's the main guy who wrote it. But there's a lot of input from other people from around the world about Lyme disease and about the tick-borne diseases. So I would definitely recommend reading this book. It's something that should be on the minds of everybody in the world right now, especially people in America, I'd say, and Europe. But anyway, there's some stuff at the beginning, like before the book actually gets started. Hi, guys. Hi.
Hi.
Diagnosis and treatment of tick-borne disease are complicated and require not only clinical observation but also modern medical technology, radiology, SPECT and MRI, comprehensive neuropsychiatric evaluation, serology from specialty laboratories, advanced co-infection testing for Babesia. Now I might be mispronouncing these things, so anyway, Bartonella and Ehrlichia anaplasma, sleep lab assessment and physical therapy evaluation. Dr. Raxlen is a psychiatrist. I've mentioned that already. Ali Cashel is the author of Suffering in Silence, Chronic Lyme Disease in an Age of Denial. Those were the main people in this book who worked on this book. Page 4. Borrelia burgdorferi, Lyme, bullseye rash only appears 25 to 30% of the time, and sometimes 3 to 6 weeks after original exposure. Other early signs and symptoms may be attributed to simple flu, fever, sore muscles and joints, fatigue, then months or years later neurological symptoms, cognitive, psychiatric, arthritic and or musculoskeletal problems, or chronic fatigue and exhaustion. The Center for Disease Control in the United States recently stated that the number of individuals infected with Lyme disease is likely to be 10 times higher than already reported. 17. Although it may seem perfectly obvious, an important consideration is whether or not the patient has lived in or visited an endemic area locally or further afield. This knowledge is probably the most important single piece of information that a physician must know before he can proceed with his analysis of a potential tick-borne disease problem. I disagree with that. Yeah. People can transport ticks anywhere. Yeah. Thus, any place on the planet could be a temporary tick connecting flight zone. Honestly.
Could be taken to the moon.
Yeah. Do you have indoor-outdoor pets, dog, cat? Have you visited high endemic areas? Have you lived in or visited property that has known deer grazers? Multiple visits to doctor. Blood testing may be done, often with negative results. The patient may or may not have treatment for acute TBD, usually 3 to 4 weeks of antibiotic doxycycline. Symptoms persist. Negative interaction with medical system provokes a PTSD-like syndrome. Okay, I'm going to mention this right away. Before you read this, normally I'd recommend this for non-fiction books anyway. If you're interested in the subject, then photocopy the source material at the back and just photocopy it single-sided, and then just take your notes on the other side. And then you have the information right there for when you're wanting to look the stuff up later. But for this one, there is a section at the back devoted to abbreviations, what the abbreviations mean. Because honestly, the book's already thick. If they had used the long version of everything, nobody would read the book. So photocopy that abbreviations list, because there's quite a few. So, like, I just used one. TBD would be tick-borne disease, right? So anyway, these patients become fearful of believing or trusting most doctors and disdain the medical profession. Objective versus subjective symptoms. In spite of the extreme fatigue, patients also suffer from severe insomnia, and the insomnia can be accompanied by drenching night sweats or air hunger. There's a likelihood that the patient is suffering from an infection by a red blood cell parasite, babesiosis, along with borreliosis. I'm just going to bite of this.
That explains why there might be a lot of different symptoms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your immune system is lowered and you get secondary infections off of it. So.
Well, they're not only packing one thing when they're nailing you. Anyway, neurocognitive decline, brain fog, memory loss, decreased processing speed, irritable, disagreeable, withdrawn, antisocial, and uptight. Previous TBD's diagnosis, treatment guidelines from the Infectious Disease Society of America take exception to the concept of chronic Lyme and recommend only 1 month of IV therapy. Patient is redefined as having a post-Lyme syndrome. Extensive experience with naturopaths is another key thing, because I mean they're not getting help from the regular medical community, so then they're going elsewhere. Natural remedies, diet change, detoxification protocols have helped many patients. These therapies rarely get to the root of the problem, though. Internet surfing. This type of self-diagnosis will irritate most specialists. And with negative workup and zero negative lab results, they will quickly be dismissed as not Lyme disease. So patient returns to the internet. Because, I mean, they're desperate to try to find what's wrong with them. They know something is very, very wrong.
And actually going to the internet shouldn't be considered a desperation move. I swear by and not at Dr. Google. I swear at doctors, GPs at least.
Well, you know, I've been able to get better medical treatment from Dr. Google sometimes than I have from...
Well, not treatment, but diagnosis, right? Yeah, that's what you meant to say. But...
well, no, because then I can go on my own and figure out a treatment course. So it does...
Yeah.
It's...
So books and Dr. Google are actually, sadly, it shouldn't be that way. They're better than your average GP, way better.
Well, I don't know. It probably depends on where you are in the world.
Okay.
But here in Canada, I have this suspicion, I might be wrong, but we have publicly funded education to a large extent, not entirely, and a lot of people who want to be doctors, why would they stay here? They get their education, they go stateside, they can make more money, and they have a better climate to live in, you know, so I think that probably happens a lot.
Well, this comes from England. They might have a bit of a drain there because they're even...
I think this doctor, he's a New York-based psychiatrist, Dr. Bernard Raxlen. So the book was published in...
So I think they'd have similar problems everywhere. One of the big problems is the insurance industry in the United States, and it's setting the patterns for everywhere in the so-called free world.
Yeah.
So we do have problems here in terms of availability because we've probably got a bit of a so-called brain drain. We don't have enough physicians. And that's the problem of our government. What should happen is, I think for most forms of education, 50% of the bill might be footed by the taxpayer, it might even be more. And what should happen is if there's a brain drain, if a doctor or an individual heads elsewhere, they or the place they're heading should recompense the government that educated the doctor or engineer or whatever.
Oh, I agree with that. Because we got a whole bunch of great doctors from South Africa a few years back.
Yeah.
And why wasn't the South African government compensated for that?
They should have been compensated, but what the Canada's solution to the problem was, and that was Harper, was to block doctors from coming in. medical
that
people
shouldn't.
die, and that's shameful because this is incidentally politically incorrect to consider them refugees and stuff like that.
Really?
It's a violent place,
Yeah.
and when people are coming from color, coming from violent places like Guatemala, they're refugees. But if they're people of non-color, and
Well,
particularly
everybody's a
Boers,
different color.
exactly.
There's
right.
no non-color.
Well,
There's
I'm
no
being
color.
I'm being ironic about it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
I
saying?
know.
You know. But if they're
I know.
white
Like,
and
you were
they're
talking
rich, coming
about-
from South Africa, and Boers, oh man,
You were
gotta
talking
block
about a while ago about the browning of America. You read this book. What was it called again? The ethno something.
and the
I
ethno
don't-
state, some alt-right boys in the ethno state and stuff like that.
Something like
Yeah.
that. Anyway, and so, but I hadn't heard this term, the browning of America, and then I heard it in the video that we were watching the other day, so it must be a common thing. But
Yeah.
I don't.
I hadn't
said
heard
something-
about red pilling either. You know, like
and that's really interesting. I
apparently
like that.
a lot
But-
of right-wingers talk about that.
Yeah,
So.
it's really witty.
Well, you know, it was taken from something that you think of as being kind of left-wing
Yeah.
Matrix and things like that. I can't
But-
even remember the scene. You couldn't remember that.
No,
but,
it's been a while since I watched The Matrix. But
Yeah.
anyway, no. But you were mentioning how really racist it is.
I
to
don't
be
know who
looking
came
at-
up with it, but
Yeah.
the woman was saying using the term as though it was a great thing.
Yeah.
But you see, the thing is, here's what Gloria Steinem said. What sauce for the goose? She didn't actually say in these terms. My dad used to say this. What sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, and vice versa. And she just said, you know, all you got to do to see if there are inequities and stuff like that is reverse the situation. So if guys get away with something and women aren't allowed, then there's something wrong. But you know, like the whole thing is, it's got to be applied across the board. If women are allowed to do something, guys aren't, then there's something wrong there, right? I don't know if there'd be that many places in the world at times or whatever where that would occur, but we've got to be alive to the possibility. So what I was saying was, what would happen if someone was saying, wow, I can hardly wait for the whiting of China, or the graying of Africa, or, you know, it's racist to think that that's just by itself a positive thing. So
Yeah.
she's a racist. She's a self-proclaimed feminist and
Do you remember the author's
academic.
name of that book?
Yeah, it might occur to me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember. It sat on
She
the table
bore
for a
a
while.
unfortunate resemblance to Henry Kissinger. She even had the same glasses and stuff like that.
All right then.
Yeah. And the main problem is she's overweight. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So, yeah.
All right. Oh, I don't think I've been giving you the page numbers. I'm up to page 25
Stern.
now.
Stern was the last name. Minna is her middle name, and I've forgotten the first name.
You're very good.
Sometimes.
Okay, so back to Lyme disease. Family dynamics and simultaneous infections. Many in family may have been exposed at the same time. And we were talking about this, James and I, how that's, you know, that seems odd, but you vacation together, or you just in the yard together, or you go to walk the same neighborhoods or whatever, and you're exposed that way. Or, you know, it could be that, I mean, really, Lyme disease has been not taken seriously by the medical community. It's gotten out of control. Out of control. It's a serious problem now. And they haven't done the research on it. And at the beginning of the book, he introduces it saying, what if I was to tell you, like, I'm not quoting it because I don't have a brain like James's, but he was basically saying, what if I was to tell you that there's an epidemic that's way worse than the HIV crisis and and we're living in it now, and he's saying it's Lyme disease. And I agree, it's insane. We don't know how it's being spread exactly. Like, sure, it's being spread by ticks, but they're not even recognizing the fact that the tick could be, somebody could have wandered across, like, say, I've mentioned it before, in Alberta, there's a lot of the resource towns, especially. They get a lot of traffic with just temporary people living temporarily in those places, usually along the river bottoms or creek bottoms, along the trails, over the spring, summer, fall months, and then they're gone, right? So they're not there in the winter, but they could be bringing the ticks in with them in the spring, and then everybody in that who lives there is getting the ticks all summer long. And nobody's even suggested this, as far as I know, except for James and I, that this is a possibility. Not a possibility, a certainty. This is a certainty.
So what we discovered that we weren't doing, you see, there are experiments, and that there is experience, and this is what science is based on. So it's nice if you can set up experiments, but you know, some things you can't, like you can't do an experiment on the sun, you know, it's too far away and it's too hot. You can't do an experiment on Jupiter because whatever had happened, we get crushed in there. It's high pressure. But, and you know, it's a long ways away. You can't do something on Alpha Centauri. It's too far away. It's right now. So you experience. The other thing is, you know, penicillin, I guess, was a fortuitous discovery. Someone just noticed something. Yeah. So, hey, we noticed something. So I've said it before, but I'll repeat it again, in case someone didn't see it. We were vacationing in Riding Mountain National Park in Manitoba. It's just over on the other side of the border of Manitoba, but it's more than a province widths away. And Saskatchewan is not a thin province. So we got, I think, all of the dogs and you and I ended up with over 50 ticks on us.
Yeah.
So that was a lot.
Mostly from one trail.
One trail that hadn't been
mowed along
properly
the
maintained or whatever, mowed anywhere really.
Yeah, there were branches right over. You had to go in and like under and over branches.
So there was a lot of grass, you know, up high, well, not this high, but you know, around the knees and junk like that. And you know, what was bothering me there was the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
You know, that was right away. But the long-term thing was going like this. This is weird. So we get back. We didn't rush back or anything like that. We came through a big thunderstorm and all that sort of stuff. And
we got the ticks off of us.
We got the ticks off of us. But the first day we were there how many days? At least 2 days, right?
I think 3.
3, there you go. But the first day was when we hit that trail. If you think about it, we came in from the south. Yeah.
That wasn't the first day. It wasn't, it was the last. That big long trail, that was the last day. But it doesn't matter. Yeah,
it doesn't matter. I'm kind of mixing it up with Prince Albert National Park. You're right.
Yes.
That one was a badly maintained trail too. But
yes.
Yeah, exactly right. And that one we hit the first day.
That one we hit the first, yes.
Anyway, little glitch there, and it happens. Senior moment. Anyway, so at any rate, last day, and we come back, and I think we got back the same day, but I like to, not that I always do, not even that I do it most of the time, but I like at least the idea of vacuuming out the car, cleaning it out after a trip.
Yes.
Big trouble is, you've been on the road.
Checking the time on the camera. You keep talking.
Okay, been on the road, and you've been camping out, and you've been hiking, and you're tired. So I would never clean it up the next day, much less same day, next day. You know, so it wasn't a week later, but it wasn't less than half a week later. It's, let's say, 4 days later. And that doesn't include the time traveling, right? So basically 5 days later,
we stopped and
I'm vacuuming out the you know, the sleeping bag that we had there, lifted it up, vacuuming over, and I, for some reason or other, decided to vacuum out the pockets. Yeah, sometimes I'm a little retentive. I won't say.
No, I like it.
And all of a sudden, it didn't. This thing is fighting against me. You know how they cling? It's a tick. It's tick. It was living in the pocket.
They really cling.
Surviving in the pocket. And it wasn't as though it was on its last legs. How do I know? It was clinging with its not last legs. It was still strong, you know? So it was just hanging around. I particularly wanted to clean it out because I had a feeling.
Yeah.
I had a feeling. So there it was, as bold as brass and as live as life. And the thing is, how far can you go? So long as you had a somewhat conducive environment. That's why I say you could have a tick on the moon. If you sent several people up there.
Well, yeah, because that little guy, he wasn't getting any water or anything there. He was
not in the pocket there. No way. It was just so you could catch a tick on the moon. You know, 3-person. You could catch it at the space station, but you could catch it on the moon. I don't think it takes much more than 5 days to get up there. Maybe it's a week, I'm not sure. But you could catch it on the moon. Okay, this guy looked as though he could have gone a couple of days more.
In a submarine.
In a submarine. You could catch one in the submarine.
Yeah.
How many days does it take to go around the world? Well, I don't know. I think, it's like, what is it, 8 hours from here to Moscow? Or from Calgary to Moscow, is it something like that?
Yep.
So
yeah, you could catch one in Antarctica.
Yeah, you could catch one in Antarctica. That's right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't. I don't know how long it lasts down there. If it's a nice warm sort of thing, I don't know.
Hang out on some penguins for a while.
Yeah, I don't know. Would it take you 2 days to go around the world at the equator? Going around the world at this latitude isn't the same thing as going around the equator, but. A tick could make it around the world. Anywhere around the world, around the equator. It could be up to the North Pole, at the South Pole.
Yeah.
And
just hitching a ride.
And the doctors be going, oh yeah, tell me another one. That one's good. I can really prescribe something for you for the organ between your ears, stuff like that. So yeah, there you go.
Plus,
experience. And you don't have to do any more experiments or anything like that. It's already been done. Now the thing is, how do you deal with that experience? You don't have to do any more work. You know that given just
and that's just
a certain
if you can
degree of heat. When was that?
Catch
June or
Lyme
something?
through the tick. That's just if you just put the blinders on and say it's only transmitted by the tick. Then if you open up your mind a little more, then you realize, oh my gosh, things are really out of control. Anyway, red flag symptoms: embedded tick, bullseye rash, Borrelia, shortness of breath, Babesia, air hunger and negative pulmonary effects, examination, Babesia, drenching night sweats, Babesia, swollen joints, Borrelia, light sensitivity, Borrelia and Bartonella, sound sensitivity, both, touch sensitivity, both, plantar fasciitis, painful heel, sole of foot, Bartonella, sudden psychiatric or neurocognitive impairment, both, unprovoked nausea, Bartonella, sudden panic attacks and unprovoked anxiety, both, purple-red streaks or scratches, Bartonella, new episodes of migraine headaches, Borrelia, reduced hearing in one or both ears, Borrelia, sudden and persistent insomnia, Borrelia, gastrointestinal symptoms, Bartonella, vagus nerve neuropathies, Borrelia, cardiovascular abnormalities, POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, that's Borrelia, strange persistent...
That's just your heart beating too fast.
Yeah, okay. Strange persistent symptoms, gravity pulling patient into floor, constant sweating on one side of body, numbness from the waist down, confusion of day-to-day acts, inability to recognize friends, family faces, psychogenic or emotional-driven seizures, symptom-free, then sudden onset of multi-symptom complaints, depersonalization, a sense of being outside of one's body, loss of reading, mathematical abilities, depth perception issues, changes in vision without optical diagnosis, sudden irrational suicide thoughts or homicidal thoughts, migrating pain, particularly in joints, muscles, and nerves that may be here one day and gone tomorrow. The above are repeated commonalities. Those are common. Page 28, common labels: fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, chronic viral syndrome, depression, stress or seasonal affective disorder with migraine headaches. Long-term tick-borne infections are often dismissed as post-treatment Lyme syndrome. So that's all I'm going to talk about for now. And I'm just going to leave you with the thought that Lyme disease is a spirochete, which also syphilis is. So why wouldn't Lyme disease be transmitted just in the same ways as syphilis is? It's something to think about.